happy, productive, secure lives. But few of us stop to consider the origin of the plant kingdom that turned the world green and made our lives possible. The origin of humans is frequently considered in books and TV documentaries, but not the origin of land plants. And as the human population continues to escalate, our survival depends on how we treat the plant kingdom and the soils that sustain it. The evolutionary history of our land floras, the story of how plant life conquered the continents to dominate the planet, is fundamental to our own existence. This, then, is the subject of Making Eden. Building on the foundations established by generations of scientists, he reveals the hidden history of Earth's sun-shot greenery and considers its future prospects as we farm the planet to feed the world. Our evolutionary journey stretches back over 500 million years, with twists and turns decoded from clues encrypted in fossils, DNA molecules, and the ecology of the plant kingdom. It is a story of how plant life on land originated from freshwater algal ancestors, how it inhaled, diversified, and spread out to conquer the continents, slowly air-conditioning the planet. Finally, we are glimpsing answers to the question of origins that have haunted botanists ever since Darwin. In some respects, Making Eden can be regarded as the prequel to my previous book, The Emerald Planet, which actually had rather little to say about how plant life on land got going and sustains the diversity of life there. Instead, it offered a closely argued case for recognizing plants as a geological force of nature, drivers of change, sculpting continents, and changing the chemistry of the atmosphere and oceans to set the agenda for life on Earth. It was a long, overlooked story that went on to sow the seeds for the 3-part BBC Two television series, How to Grow a Planet. But now, the stage is set for Making Eden. My hope in writing this book is that it might at least give listeners pause for thought before dismissing botany as boring and irrelevant. I also hope that it might persuade listeners to think of plants, and the scientists who study them, in an entertaining new light. Steve Jones, a leading geneticist at University College London and one-time regular science columnist for the Daily Telegraph, wrote an article a few years ago entitled, "Where Have All the Botanists Gone? Just When We Need Them." He rightly pointed out the central role of plants in the challenges facing humanity and the challenges facing the subject of botany, writing, "Why do students find the vegetable world so boring, when without it we would perish? Plants and botanists are in need of greater advocacy." Ultimately, I hope listeners may come to appreciate that botany is an astonishing and deeply engaging field of scientific inquiry, with immediacy to all life on Earth. D.B. Sheffield, 2018. Chapter 1. All Flesh is Grass. Going up that river was like traveling back to the earliest beginnings of the world, when vegetation rioted on the earth, and the big trees were kings. Joseph Conrad, Heart of Darkness, 1899. The spectacular rise and diversification of plant life on land reshaped the global environment and the possibilities of our lives. It was one of the greatest revolutions in the history of life on Earth. But there's no need to take my word for it. Here is paleontologist Richard Fortey's view on the matter, writing in his book, Life, an Unauthorized Biography. There cannot be a more important event than the greening of the world, for it prepared the way for everything that happened on land thereafter in the evolutionary theatre. This book tells the story of how it happened, or at least the story of how we think it may have happened. A celebration of discovery and scientific inquiry, this book lifts the lid on the evolutionary story of how plants won the land, how the Earth went from being a dull, rocky, naked planet to today's world cloaked in a wonderful diversity of plant life on which we all depend for our very existence. It looks also to the future, as the 6th great extinction in the history of life on Earth looms unwantedly and alarmingly on the horizon. First, though, let's take a step back. Imagine for a moment a strange alternative world without plants, a naked Earth shorn of its greenery. This alien planet is a favorite haunt of fiction writers and directors of post-apocalyptic movies, and for good reason. In a world where plant life never evolved